All right, we are back at Owen Cyclery in Hickson, Tennessee with Eric Hunt, and he is going to do a full bike fit for us. As I've already said in the previous video, he's one of the best I've ever seen. He did a bike fit for me on my everyday bike, and we're going to do a bike fit for my trainer. And I know that's important. I spend a lot of time on the trainer. So
absolutely. So this is just some things to know. So Mike's first bike is a more aggressive, what I would call race geometry bike. And for those of you that may be considering a bike to purchase, this is a pretty important point to think about. A race bike, the front end of the bike is much lower, typically lower than our seat position. It tends to be just slightly more stretched out for the rider to kind of be able to harness and to generate better power. Whereas this bike, we have a much taller front end on the bike. And then there are some shapes built into this Cannondale that actually dampen bump energy. So as you're riding down the road and you hit a pothole, seam in the road, you're gonna feel less of that energy on a bike like this, whereas on a race bike, much of the time, you really feel those jolts because that bike is designed to be very stiff and responsive to climb well. So you sort of sacrifice a bit of comfort on a race bike versus what you'll get on a endurance geometry bike. So I'm going to ask Mike some questions about the fit that he's looking for regarding his trainer bike, because it may be a very different setup from his more aggressive bike. So we'll get started and kind of see where we end up.
good deal. Can we get on?
Yep, go ahead and hop on there for me if you would.
So talking about fit, you know, I'm on my phone a lot when I'm riding this.
Yeah.
And I want the versatility of riding it, like you explained, a little bit more comfortable, but I also want the versatility of being able to get down kind of in race mode when I'm on a Zwift race, you know. And so I don't feel like I can get down low enough on the hoods on this bike. Yeah. And I know there's something going on here, and I know you'll check that out. But, But yeah, I'd kind of like something in between, but I'd like to be able, even if I have to get down in the drops to get where I would be on the hoods for my other bike, I'd like that versatility.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and we can certainly get you there. Okay. But you know, it's really common. I would say for the fits that we do, the average rider these days probably errs more to the comfort side of a fit versus Mike. He competes. He does some pretty epic rides, centuries. We live in East Tennessee, so there's tons of hills and mountains to climb in this area. So we're gonna bring him down to where he feels like he does have a little better ability to just dig into the bike and make better speed. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if after we do the fit, if he doesn't see, you know, faster averages on his trainer than maybe what he's been able to get with the setup of the bike right now. So first thing we're going to look at is his leg length. And to do that, we basically, Mike, if you would just pedal the bike. I always like for people to start.
You may have it a little too stiff.
Start the fit. I think our tire's flat a little bit.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, we probably need to put some air in it.
Yeah. Let me go get it.
All right. Yeah, the rear tire has not been on the bike for quite some time, and so we're going to put some air in it. But while he's getting the pump, Eric is so thorough on a bike fit. I've had two of my friends that I've brought down that have gotten bikes, and right out of the gate, before they even started riding, they had Eric fit them for a bike. And I wish this is something I had done. I wish I'd known Eric when I had my first bike fit, because my first bike fit was it was costly, and I didn't get nowhere near the attention that Eric gives. And so yeah, it's just important that you find the right person, go to a bike shop, and you may even ask for references off of somebody that had a bike fit, but get them to explain to you, if not, what they do and all the steps involved in a bike fit. So I was just explaining that this bike, Will, has not been on this bike for
Okay.
yeah, probably close to 6-8 months.
Yep, that will make a difference.
That's another
That
good,
ought to be good.
yeah, that's another good tip too, Eric, is that a lot of new riders, they don't realize that they need to check their pressure every ride.
It is a good
I
idea.
mean, I check mine every single ride. If I ride one day and then ride the next, I'm topping it off.
It'll make your rides a bit faster, and it also reduces the susceptibility to flat tires pretty significantly, so always a good idea. So all right, so initially what I'm seeing, I think the seat is probably low.
Okay.
Hold on right there for me if you would. Yeah, I can tell you're pretty comfortable in terms of the setup you have. I don't think this is bad at all for a trainer bike, but I also know that in order to kind of get where you want to be with your riding, just the ability to kind of go faster, we're gonna improve that for sure. So, but let's take a look at your leg length first. So, yep, Mike's got his crank stopped at about the 5 o'clock position. This is a device called a goniometer, which is common in bike fits. I'm basically gonna connect a dot from his ankle to his knee and then to his hip flexor. We're gonna measure that angle and see if we need to raise or lower the seat.
I'm gonna guess that you gotta raise it.
Yep, you are just barely out of sort of the acceptable angle for a seat height. I don't know if you're feeling this at all, but based on what I measured, I don't know if you feel a crampiness
I do.
in the bottom of your quad.
So off camera, we were actually talking about this, Eric and I was, and I definitely struggle here. In fact, you can see where I've had to use some of the cupping. The one's faded a little bit. I put a cup on it yesterday. So this muscle is definitely, and it's off camera, we were talking about it, and so he had kind of diagnosed what I already suspected, but yes, I definitely have had issues with that quad.
So with a saddle that's too low much of the time, I will use the analogy of sort of doing leg presses and having a barbell on your shoulders and never bringing that weight to basically where your muscles are at rest to essentially lock your leg. And I'm not saying we need to lock our leg regarding pedaling a bike, but it's essentially the same thing. If we get you in the range that is kind of accepted for your leg length in pedaling a bike, it gives that leg just a very quick little rest at the bottom of that pedal stroke. It actually allows it to put the muscle at rest, and then you're ready to fire with the other leg and bring the opposite leg back to the 12 o'clock position and kind of make that pass back down, which is where you get most of your power when you pedal a bike from. If you think of your crank as a watch face, from about 12 o'clock to roughly 5 o'clock, that's really where you're pushing the hardest. And then the other thing that plays into this, when you're at the top of your pedal stroke, the less severe we make this angle here, there's less of an interruption, better better flow in your leg's ability to carry that crank arm around. So it's important for, yeah, the stretching of your leg, but also the compression of your leg. So it's very important to get that adjustment correct. So based on what I measured, I'm gonna make a little dot just to reference where the saddle position is before we loosen and make the adjustment on the seat binder. So just with a little silver Sharpie, I made a little dot just so we kind of know where we're starting from. And now I'm gonna raise it, and I'm gonna use a torque wrench. And the reason this is important is if you loosen this binder and make an adjustment and you don't get it set to the proper torque spec, it is very possible that the seat post can sink over a period of time, and then all of a sudden your seat adjustment is no longer correct. So you really want to have a good hard number to reference regarding the torque spec on this bolt. So I've got my torque wrench set to that number. I'm going to go ahead and loosen it up. Based on what I've measured, I normally wouldn't move it this high up, but I think Mike probably does need a little extra height.
It looks good.
Okay, and my torque wrench is popping, so with the proper torque,
Oh, that feels better. Oh my goodness. Can't believe I had it too low.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
it does make a difference.
Oh man, you can tell a difference immediately.
And it, you know, much of the time, just the flow of your pedal kind of comes into play. The way you actually turn the crank over and over, you just have better ability to do that if your seat is at the proper height. All right, so let's see where our angle is now.
Make sure we show that in the camera. Show them the difference, Eric.
Okay, so we were
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, right in there.
basically at about 38 degrees, if you can see that. And what I measured, we are now at about 31 degrees. So we actually opened this angle, made it longer and more open.
And it just feels, I can feel the difference.
So
That's a big difference too. 7 degrees?
yeah. Now, we could go more, but I think in the case of this bike, you know, maybe you're pedaling differently than you would on your race bike.
Mm-hmm.
We can certainly raise it. You know,
How much higher could you raise it?
I would say probably another half the distance that I raised it the first time.
Oh wow.
So yeah,
That's
it
interesting.
could be higher. So, but you know, kind of your call on that point.
I think it would depend on what we do with the handlebars.
Yeah. Well, there's something I saw regarding your seat placement, which I'm about to get to next,
Okay.
and it's definitely going to affect all the other
Yeah, let's do that.
parts.
I forgot about that.
That
The
we
forward or backward
looked
seat
at.
placement.
Yes. So, one other thing that I always like to check as well is I will
Check if it's level.
put something with a flat edge on top of the saddle, and I check the angle of the saddle. This saddle is pretty much drop dead at 0 degrees, which is not bad, especially for a road bike.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on a road bike, you tend to sit up more upright. Your hip bones, or your sit bones, I guess I should say, are landing kind of more here. In this case, we have a very upright position. If we were doing a tri-fit, we would certainly look for an angle that's a little more nose down, because your pelvis tends to rotate down to where you can get into aero bars. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, if we have a lower handlebar position and you leave a saddle completely flat, it can sort of irritate the frontal area of where you're sitting. So to tilt the nose of the saddle down just a little bit can make you more comfortable. It can also just allow you to sort of get more parts of your body into pedaling the bike. So I think for where we are here, and the fact that comfort does factor into more of a trainer bike, I think this angle's fine. And then of course the other thing is how is that saddle? Do you find it to be pretty comfortable?
It is very it's similar to the Physic saddle on that other. It's almost like a copy of it, but it's it's not made by Physic, of course, but
right.
But it's very comfortable to me.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's
because the shape is almost identical.
That's really the question: is it comfortable?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't ever have a problem with my seat.
Yeah, that's good.
As a new cyclist, there was that soreness that I had to go through.
Right, right.
But,
now something that I thought was sort of unusual about this particular setup is this seat is all the way forward. Mm-hmm. So we've got what I would term as a pretty long stem on this bike. The stem is basically the part of the bike that joins the handlebar to the frame, and they come in different lengths. And this particular one,
both of the guys I brought to you to fit, I think you had to change the stem.
Yeah, it's very common.
Yeah.
This is a 110 millimeter stem, so by fit standards, that's a pretty long stem. So I can only imagine that Mike bought this bike secondhand.
Mm-hmm.
If this is where the person that owned the bike had it set up, they probably pushed the seat all the way forward to compensate for this really long stem that's on there. What I'm going to look at next, I've got just a simple plumb bob that I'm going to drop off of a point near Mike's knee, and it's going to give me a reference. So go ahead and hop back up there for me.
I might have slid that seat up forward, trying to get closer to the handlebar.
Yeah, it's entirely common.
I've had it so long, like over a year, so I've slept since then. So I don't know if I did that or not.
Yeah. So, all right, and just if you would bring your cranks to where they're parallel to the floor.
Okay.
There we go. And I'm going to just kind of guide you, right there. And I'm going to drop this plumb bob off of this little, it's called the tibial tuberosity. And what I'm seeing, it's hard to see from our camera angle, but this plumb bob is actually falling just in front of the edge of the crank arm. We're definitely in front of the area where the threaded portion of the crank arm is, where the pedal goes into the crank arm. We are in front of that. Mm-hmm. Now, what that basically means is if Mike were riding this bike, out on open roads, his ability to climb would be kind of compromised, because you do want to be further back if you're doing general rides, rolling terrain, climbing. What I'm seeing.
So this part of the knee is in front of the threaded area of the pedal.
Yes.
And that's bad.
It's bad for this application.
Okay.
If this were a tri-bike, or if you said, I want to do a tri-bike and I want to put a set of clip-on aero bars on this bike,
right,
it actually would be pretty good.
Okay.
Now we would do some other things with the angle of the saddle.
Right.
We would still, in most cases, probably end up shortening the stem. But where it's sort of a compromise for you right now is the fact that you can't get farther back to incorporate muscles that help you climb hills effectively.
That's interesting.
So my recommendation would be to.
And I climb a lot of hills.
Yeah.
On Zwift.
Yeah.
I mean, Vento is my favorite.
Oh yeah.
It's brutal.
Well, you'll notice the difference once you get.
Oh, that's good.
Once you get this.
This may alleviate this too. Is what you're thinking?
It very well could.
All these adjustments should.
Yeah, most certainly.
Okay.
Something else that, I made the comment about raising the seat again. When I move the saddle back, we're essentially going to be raising the seat. Because the angle of this seat tube relative to where the saddle sits, if we go forward, we make this distance shorter. If we go back, we make that distance longer. And I mean, it's not a night and day difference, but it may account for a millimeter or two.
Okay.
So it's a good idea to kind of do that.
Move it back some?
Yeah, I'm gonna move it back, and where I'm gonna move it, and some of you guys may not know this, there's a binder on the bottom of the seat post that you can loosen, and it gives you the ability to actually move the seat, the seat position on the seat rail. And there are little graduations or a little incremental scale on the side of the seat rail. And those are great because you have sort of a built-in reference point as to where you want to move it to. I'm going to put this in what I like to call a neutral position. So I'm not going to push it all the way back, and I'm certainly not going to move it any more forward. So I'm going to make that adjustment really quick.
Starting to get excited, Eric.
Well,
Yeah, looking forward to it.
little things,
I wished I hadn't already ridden today. I may have to go home and do
Well, you
a
can.
little zone 2 ride.
You can ride, yeah, go ride in the house.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna get rain anyway, so you might as well.
I know I was out the other day in the wind, and it certainly wasn't as easy as riding in the house.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We dealt with some headwinds. It was pretty rough.
Yeah, that's one thing you can't simulate on a trainer, that's
No,
for sure.
no, you can't. It's tough.
All right, and again, I use my torque wrench, just so we know we're getting everything where it should be tightness wise.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're talking about.
All right, now, keep in mind, the biggest thing we're trying to get to is we want to move your hips sort of back relative to where you're pedaling, just to give you more ability to pedal up hills. We, much of the time, create another symptom that we'll deal with here in a minute. If you push somebody's hips back, you essentially make the handlebar a little farther away from where they were.
Oh yeah, I can tell.
So, and not to say it's wrong, but it's something that we definitely need to look at and address further into the fit. But let's take another plumb bob reading here, see what we've done. And so now, instead of being in front of the threaded portion of the crank, we are now slightly behind the threaded portion where the pedal goes into the crank arm. So we have moved him back, I would say at least 1.5 centimeters, if not 2 centimeters, which is really right about where we want to be. We want this plumb bob to fall within 2 centimeters of where the pedal threads into the crank arm. So we have essentially made your ability to climb hills, to pedal with better power in certain settings to be better.
So just for the viewers, the knee here is now behind the threaded part of the
Crank arm. Yeah.
Crank arm, yeah.
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 So, and keep in mind, this only really applies to a road fit. If
I got
we
you.
were doing other types of fit, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. But,
Okay.
and also something that plays into this as well, Mike's kind of a tall guy.
6 foot even.
The taller you are, the further back you're gonna go with that adjustment. And, you know, and then you also take into account the shoe size of the rider, and there's some other variables. So again, we're not looking for this magic point. It's gonna vary from rider to rider. If we were 5 feet tall and wore a size 6 shoe, that point would be different than where we've got Mike placed. So keep that in mind as well. So we have raised the saddle. We've pushed the saddle back. Now, Mike, if you would hold on up here for me and just kind of raise up. Don't kind of hold yourself in that down position. What I'm basically measuring here is I'm going to draw a line from his hip and then up to his shoulder and down to his elbow. And I'm seeing pretty much a right angle. So from here to here and then down. Bring your upper body up, Mike, if you would. So you see how as he comes up, this angle sort of opens up a little bit. We are a little more open than a 90-degree angle. I would call it probably about a 94-degree angle. So something to think about, and again, this really kind of ties into the fit he's looking for regarding an indoor trainer bike. If he holds his position with his arms slightly extended past 90 degrees, we start to get some tension in this part of the neck and shoulders. Now in his case, he tends to want to kind of bend back down like you were doing. You see how this angle again decreases, which does alleviate the pain here, but it can create pain in the lower back because you're further down. And I think in his case, this is probably the position that he rides in most often. How much time do you typically ride indoors when you're
An hour.
An hour?
An hour,
Yeah.
and on a Saturday, if the weather's bad, I might do 3 hours.
Okay. So, if
But I'm doing this a lot.
yeah. Which that can be a clue as to what we need to do, because just you with your torso, you're not as far sort of lean down into the bike, and again, this angle just keeps getting greater and greater. So if you notice things like pain in either the neck and shoulder area or maybe even in your lower back, that's a pretty good indicator that we probably should go to a shorter stem.
Okay.
Just from what I'm seeing, the way I think you hold yourself on the bike, your ability to kind of come up is not going to be as comfortable with the stem that's on there.
Right.
But if you're riding fast, I mean,
This would be better.
for an hour, you probably could tolerate riding in that position where the angle is more closed.
Yeah, so if we move the stem shorter, it's gonna move my hands back.
Yeah.
So
And it would give you the ability to sort of bring your torso up, and it would help eliminate this open angle, which could give you neck and shoulder pain.
Okay.
But the comment you made about wanting to kind of dig deeper into the bike, essentially lowering the handlebar position.
Yeah.
I think probably what we should do is lower the position just simply based on changing the arrangement of these spacers.
Right,
Let you kind of try that on,
okay.
see where you are, and then we can kind of make the determination as to whether we need to go to a shorter stem or just
Okay.
keep the one that's on there.
Okay,
So go
sounds
ahead and
good.
hop off for me if you would.
Okay.
And it's interesting, the way, you can hold your torso, at different angles. And when you bend forward, you sort of shorten the distance that you're reaching to the handlebar versus when you raise up, you're lengthening that angle. You're making it, a little greater than 90 degrees. So, really based on your riding style and so on, that will determine kind of what you think about shortening the stem. I would tell you in most cases I would shorten it,
Okay,
but I think in your case, we'll see after we look.
okay, I got you, okay.
I like the seat position.
Yeah, yeah,
Feels good.
it's, you wouldn't think that
No, I wouldn't.
something that simple would.
I knew
work.
something was going on because of this pain in the quad.
Yeah. And keep in mind too, we've kind of raised the saddle just a bit more by pushing it back, so.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So I would tell you most bikes have this type of adjustment on them, and so the stem, and again, the stem is the part that joins the handlebar to the frame, comes in different angles. The one on this bike is a positive angle, which sort of ties into the fact that this is a endurance geometry bike. A good many people would prefer to be a bit higher on their bike. And I'm gonna get kind of aggressive with this handlebar position just because I want Mike to kind of understand what this change is going to give him. So I've taken the stem all the way to its lowest position without moving this top cap. We probably dropped the handlebar, I would say a good inch and a quarter. And there tends to be two ways you can go with fits. You can bring a rider lower, which tends to give them better ability to generate speed, or you can bring them higher, which kind of gets them in a more comfortable spot. Most people we fit these days definitely have a tendency to want to be more comfortable than faster. And that includes a lot of triathletes that we fit. We have a half Ironman and a full Ironman here in Chattanooga, and a good many people that do that event, they're more interested in, yeah, they want to go fast, but more importantly, they want to be able to finish comfortably, so they've got more in the tank for the run. And so we tend to set the majority of those folks in a more comfortable position, so. All right, so go ahead and drop down there. So I remember you making the comment about wanting to get lower and deeper into the handlebar.
Yeah.
I don't know if,
This is about as low as I'd want it to be, I think.
okay. So you see the difference in the appearance of the bike. And just to drop it lower, and again, you're a rider that really likes to sort of lean into the bike. You keep your torso lower, and at that particular angle that you like to ride, we're right at about a 90-degree angle, which does alleviate
Yeah.
a lot of those muscles that typically would stretch you from having to reach out to a longer handlebar position. So I think based on what I'm seeing and the way you ride,
This is
that's
good.
a pretty good place to be.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Because I can still do this.
Yeah, and if you find that you are riding, wanting to, just to kind of prove a point, slightly bend forward and then grab those handlebars. Yeah, go ahead and like, yeah. Now keep your torso straighter, bring it up. So you see how this angle opens?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you feel the tension when you're in that spot.
A little bit.
There are a good many people that like to ride that way.
Yep.
That's just where
I've
they're
seen it.
comfortable.
With the arms straight.
Yeah, that's not you. So
No, I like to bend my elbows.
yeah, so I think you can live with this stem length.
Okay.
I think in a lot of other riders, I would certainly go to a shorter stem.
Yeah. Yeah, this is comfortable. Very comfortable.
Good. And your ability to kind of look down the road, you know, when you crane your neck out, that
Yeah.
feels
Oh, yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. Which most of the time I'm looking at my iPad. Right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
But yeah, I do mimic it. You know, we'll do an interval and I'll focus on, pretend I'm on the road.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and sometimes I'll just do a pure ride of an hour where I'm like, okay, I gotta pretend I'm on the road.
right, yeah,
And
yeah.
and
That
stay
will
down
give you
there.
the ability to do that. Now, if you did want to go lower, you could maintain this same stem length and
Yeah.
simply take this stem and flip it
Uh-huh.
and then reassemble it, and it would actually drop it probably a good 2 inches,
Oh, wow.
which would be really, really
I see.
way more aggressive than where you are right now. So,
Yeah, this is perfect though, I think.
good, cool.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah,
I think is that everything?
yeah, I think that's the basic idea of a fit, is to just sort of look at certain angles on the rider, make sure that we like what we're seeing, and if we don't see those angles, then we make a change to the bike to kind of give us that ideal setup.
That's good. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Well, we appreciate it, and if any of you guys want to leave any comments or any questions for Eric in the video, just let us know. Thank you so much, guys.
Yes, sir.
That one was 38 minutes.